Hello and welcome to the sewing studio. Today I'm going to show you how to make the block that is in this cushion, and this block is called Railroad Star. Now I'm going to use the block just to make a cushion today, but you can use this block to make a quilt if that's what you'd rather do. So you can make it as big as you want or as small as you want using this block. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to make these 4 patches here. So we need 5 sets of 4 patches. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut 2 strips of contrasting fabric, 1 red, 1 cream at 2.5 inches, and we're going to join those together. So I've cut my 2 strips of fabric, my 2 contrasting colours, to make my 4 patches. So I'll show you how we do that. I'm just going over to the machine and I'm going to sew these 2 together using a 1/4 inch seam. So I've sewn these 2 together and I'm just going over to the iron to press these. So set our seam, and then I'm going to press the fabric towards the darker fabric. So I'm pressing towards the red. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to cut this into 2.5 inch strips. So I'm just going to neaten this edge a little bit. And I'm going to take the ruler and cut these at 2.5 inches. And we actually need 10 of these because we've got 5 of these blocks and we've got 2 in each block. And then what we're going to do is we're going to join these together to make a 4 patch. So because we pressed the seam towards the red fabric, these will interlock nicely together. So I've just butt those seams up and pop a pin in. So I'm just going over to the machine to sew these together. So I'm just going to join these up and I'm going to chain piece these together. I'm going back to the iron to press those. So I'm setting the seam and just pressing them back. So this one's flipped over, so I'm just going to check, but it does meet in the middle, so I'm not going to worry too much about it. I'm just going to give it a good press. Sometimes that happens and I really don't think it's worth unpicking for that. As long as it's sitting flat and you've got a nice join here and you're not out, it's really not worth unpicking. So we need 5 of these to create our block. So we need 1 at each corner, and we need one of these star points in between those. And then we need 1 in the middle. So I've joined 3 together here so you can see. So this would be the top end. And then what we're going to create now is another 2 of these pointy stars, which is this bit on here. Now, to do this, there's a number of ways you can do this. You can do foundation piecing if that's what you're good at, But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use a template. So I've already got a triangle here that I've cut out, and I've made a template, and the template measures 4 3/4 inches. So if you made a square that was 4 3/4 inches, you found your center point and you drew a line straight up into the center and then came down to each corner, you've created the triangle that you need. So the other way you can do it is to use freezer paper. So you could draw your triangle, I'll just draw you one of those, onto the freezer paper. So I'm just going to cut this out. Now with freezer paper, it's paper on one side and it's slightly waxed on the other side. But the wax doesn't ruin your fabric. So I'm going to press this onto the reverse side of my red fabric. I'll just see how many more stars I need. How many more points do I need? Right, so I've got 2 sets. I need another 2. So I've got 1 triangle there. So I'll do this method. So you can either have your template like I've got here, draw around it and cut out your piece like I've done for this one, or you can use the freezer paper and you can make your templates and you press that onto your fabric. I'll show you how that works. And it doesn't mark the fabric. I'm saying to you it's waxy. It doesn't mark the fabric. The wax just melts enough to stick it to the fabric as a temporary fix. So you can either cut that out with scissors, or you can do as I'm going to do. I'm going to place the ruler against the edge and do it with a rotary cutter. So here's my other triangle. So I can now take off my freezer paper and I can use it again. So you can take off your freezer paper and you can use it again. And that waxy side here is good for a few more irons. As I say, that's the plain paper side and then there's the waxy side. Next you'll need your cream fabric, and these measure 6 inches by 2 3/4 inches. And with the right side looking at you, what you need to do, I'm going to put them side by side for a moment. What you need to do is you need to cut them on the diagonal, but you need to cut them in opposite directions. So from the first one, I'm going from the top right to the bottom left. So you're cutting the corner diagonally. And on the other one, you're going top left to bottom right. So you can see that you've got opposite cuts here. Then you're going to take 2 of these. Just move those ones out of the way for a moment and try and do it on this camera for you here. Then you're going to sew these, because what you want is you want to end up with that block. So if you just offer them up, I want the other one, don't I? I want that one. So if you offer them up, and then what you're going to do is you're going to sew them right sides together. Now with this, to get the point, you need to have a bit of an overhang, and it needs to be the same. So if I just pop a pin in there for a moment, if I turn it over, you can see that I've got, if we just measure that, you can see that I've got about a ½ an inch overhang, and the same there. And that's what you need. You need equal amounts of overhang from your cream fabric to your red. And then you're going to sew those down, and you're going to repeat it with the other piece. So I'll sew this first, and then I'll come back and show you what I mean. So I've stitched this one using the 1/4 inch seam. And as I said, I've got this little bit of overhang here and this bit here, and hopefully they're equal. So I'm going to flip that back and just finger press it. And then I'm going to take the next piece and I'm going to join that in the same way. Now, when you put the second one on, it's a little bit harder to check where the overhang is. So I'm just going to come down a little bit there. Let's pop a pin in. And I'm just going to measure, that's about ½ an inch. And then from the edge of there to that one, it's about ½ an inch. So I've got the same sort of overhang, top and bottom. So I'm now going back to the machine and I'm going to sew that together. And then we can press it back. And I'm going to go to the iron, and then I'm going to trim that one. So I'm just going to trim it up, but what I don't want to do is lose this point here. So I'm just going to trim a little bit off the top there, because ultimately what needs to happen is this needs to be the same size as your 4 patch. And then I'll just take off those 2 corners. So I'm going to do that once more because we need 4 of these pieces. So we need 5 4 patches and 4 pointy ones. So I'm just turning that over to make sure that I've got roughly the same overhang, which I have. I'm going to finger press it back. I'm going to press that back, give it a good press. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to join another one of these so that we've got our points coming out. So we need to join that to that, that to that. Then we need one of these in the middle. Make sure our points go outwards, not inwards, otherwise we won't have a star. So we need to make sure our pointy bits are coming outwards, like our star, and the eagle-eyed viewers among you will see that I've got that one round the wrong way, so we need to turn that the right way. So you can see that we've got the star shape. So the next thing we would do is we would join all of those together, and that is what creates the star block. And so that block itself is called the railroad star. But for the cushion, you then add this border here, And this border is 4 strips of fabric which are 2 inches. So I'll just lay all these together so you can see how this is going to look. Probably need to do a bit of trimming up of some of the blocks before I join them. But then you're going to put your strips around. So if you were doing a quilt, you could sash your blocks like this, and you could make as many blocks of these as you want to go into a quilt. So I'm going to sash round here to make my cushion. And you can see that that's the block. Now, if you wanted to, you can do like I've done here, and you can put a little fillet. So I've put a tiny little cream fillet, and it is tiny. Don't know if you can get that on the camera there. That's really tiny. I think I cut that at 3/4 of an inch and folded it and did it. And then I've put an Oxford flap around the edge. And then to finish the cushion, I've done an envelope back, and I've done a covered button with a little loop. But you could make this as a block for a quilt if you wanted to, or if you wanted just a plain envelope back cushion, you can stop at this point and just do an envelope back. So it's a really versatile block that you can use for cushions or quilts. So I hope you've enjoyed this. As always, make it your own. And I look forward to seeing you next time here in the sewing studio.